Hello loyal YouTube fans, Richard Lewis here again with another video. Just a quick one, basically responding to the latest in a long line of Riot rulings about Chris Badawi, the co-owner of the team that were Misfits, now called Renegades, that was released today. Haven't really had a lot of time to process it and sort of map it out like I do in my usual videos. So this one might be a little bit ropey, a little bit like some of the earlier ones I did, where it's going off on tangents, perhaps a little bit longer than it needs to be. But we'll try. I'll try and make my points as succinct as possible. Now, if like me, you're just sort of getting your head around the ruling, basically, I will read you Riot's own TLDR, which I tried to say a little bit like Black Enola there. But anyway, Chris Badawi, currently part owner of LCS Team Dragon Knights and Challenger Series team Renegades, solicited a player under contract with Team Liquid to join his team. After doing so, he was notified by Team Liquid's owner and LCS officials that soliciting LCS players under contract was a violation of league tampering rules and could disqualify him for consideration as an owner, coach, or player. Despite the warning, he again tampered with another Team Liquid player shortly thereafter. Due to this pattern of willful tampering, we are declining to certify Chris Badawi as an eligible LCS owner and issuing a one-year ban on him holding any officially recognised LCS team position such as owner, coach or manager. In order for TDK and Renegades to be eligible to play in the LCS next season, Chris will have to divest his ownership stake in both teams. So this is, as I said, the latest in a long line of competitive rulings. And I just want to contextualize this. So the situation we're at right now is that we are starting to see more and more rulings more frequently. They're becoming more and more harsh and more controlling. And it's all being done under the guise of doing what's best for the league, what's best for the players, whatever needs to be said to justify it. And this is pretty much how it was always going to go. The roadmap to success for Riot Games has been very clear in their minds for some time. You come to the scene bearing gifts, you get everyone on side, then you make them unwitting promoters for your product while being overly friendly and supportive. And then as the audience grows for both parties and esports starts to sprawl, Riot then want to start focusing on how they control the product, the esports side of the product. So first they do it through incentivization, and then they do it through demands which are designed to stifle competition. So, for example, you make firm suggestions, as Riot did, to organizations that, hey, if you have an LCS team, perhaps you shouldn't support Dota teams. In fact, we'd really like if you didn't support Dota teams, and we're thinking about maybe making it so you can't support Dota teams. What about that? And when that got leaked, it was a misunderstanding, of course. And then they went on to tell tournament organizers, let's keep leagues separate from rival games. Whatever game we determine to be a rival, which is pretty much why we don't see Dota and League of Legends ever on the same ticket anywhere. That's a League of Legends, that's a Riot Games doing. And of course, for all of this, they overpay. And that's why no one talks about it too much anymore. And then what they do is, okay, well, we need to start trimming away some of the exterior organizations that are basically getting rich from our game without allowing Riot without allowing us to control the game. So what they do is they stop LCS teams, the big teams that would have the big crowd and the big draw, they stop them attending LCS events. So it's bye-bye DreamHack, stop them attending non-LCS events. So it's bye-bye DreamHack and it's bye-bye MLG. ESL gets to keep IEM because they played ball by keeping Dota out of it and taking money for doing so. They're on side, So now the entire sport is under Riot control. Even the broadcasts have to be controlled by their NA officers, so people like LPLEN get fucked over, and they say it's on the grounds that it's quality control rather than just control over who makes money from their product. So it was always going to come to a point where there are now no options if you're serious about League. Riot control everything that is potentially lucrative pertaining to League of Legends outside of being a novelty streamer. And even then they've tried to control those and definitely exert influence and make their presence known. So with the absence of any alternatives for anyone that's serious about the competitive side of the game, they're now starting to ramp up these rulings. They're starting to issue more and more rulings and make the punishments more and more severe because they are the people who are the recipients of these rulings are unable to do anything about it. They're unable to, you can't just pack up your shit and go somewhere else. Like, oh well, fuck it, I won't compete in LCS. Fuck your ruling. If you don't compete in LCS, you're nothing. It's just that simple. They've manufactured it that way quite deliberately. So yeah, they've created this means to financially control everyone. And what that does in turn is it insulates them from any criticism from the people it'd matter most coming from. So they're now starting to use this with pretty malicious intent. And you can see a pattern of late if you're just willing to open your eyes to it. So, Deficio's considering a job from Copenhagen Wolves. Well, we can't have that. So we'll basically lock him down for doing anything else league-related for a year and just say, quote, these standards are higher than those we ask of LCS players. And people buy it. People don't see it for what it is. And then, of course, mysterious leak that happened today that has well, it's not even that incriminating. It doesn't tell us anything that we didn't already know. And in fact, actually, it proves that there were no, well, by its absence, if you like, that there weren't any strats being divulged. Other recently, you've got a player buying botted accounts because he wants to try and have a perfect account with no losses on it, and there's no way to directly buy level 30 accounts yourself, even if you're a pro player. Right? Still haven't come up with this contingency plan. 6 years into the game's development. So what we do is we threaten privately to disgrace him, and then we hamstring the team that he claims for by banning him for the must-win games that were just round the corner, making it look like it's a short and lenient ban, but it basically means you don't need to have a long ban because we're stopping them winning those games. And then what's this? We have a team owner trying to tamper with some players. Oh, and he's also upset some of the big organizations in North America by doing so. He's also publicly challenged Riot on a number of things in interviews. For example, he said this when one of my colleagues at the Daily Dot interviewed him. He said, they really skew towards protecting owners and organizations, speaking of Riot Games. Basically, there's no protection for the players. My observation in the scene is this: players get fucked. I can't put it any simpler than that, and I need that to change. I want that to change at a fundamental level. And he also said, organisations are not accountable to their players. They take their players for granted because they know their players will never know their worth. They'll never know their value because Riot is protecting the owner from ever having to tell the player what they are worth. So this guy has been very vocally critical about the Riot system. Okay? So keep that in mind. He sounds like another one of these pro-union guys, doesn't he? So, fuck it, what they do is, we'll say that he's tampering, and that his particular tampering is even more serious than all the other times it happened. And then they issue an unprecedented punishment that basically means Chris Badawi is going to have to stand down as owner and do so publicly, or will stop the team entering LCS, penalising the same players he professes to care about so much. Now, there's a word for this. It's a very specific word, and it's entirely appropriate to this situation. The word is devious. That's exactly what Riot have been here. And you shouldn't expect there to be less rulings moving forward because, of course, as we've established, they can flex their muscles in any way, shape, or form they want, and there is never going to be any recourse. They don't even get criticism these days. People say to me, Richard, all you do is bash Riot. I kind of have to be that guy because no one else does it. There's there's literally maybe 2 or 3 guys I can think of who are willing to vocally tackle Riot whenever they do any of this bullshit. And they've got people in the mainstream gaming media basically publishing what looks suspiciously like native advertisements under the guise of reporting for them. There's been numerous insinuations that money has changed hands for this privilege. They've got the mainstream media who are desperate to prop up their dying medium and trying to get a younger generation into actually consuming it, because we all know print media's got about 10 years left, if that. And they're doing it by using esports, so they fawn over Riot Games. They've got other games developers, schools even, being, oh, tell me about your behavior models and how it all works. Everybody fawns over Riot Games. They are a successful, wealthy company that are rich in their own right before you even get into the ridiculousness of the Tencent ownership. So, just to add this little tidbit of information, which I don't know how public this is, but they've even brought in someone to help out Nick Allen. It's Hunter Lee, who was the former editor at On Gamers, and he now works alongside the league commissioner, and that suggests to me that the workload when it comes to disciplinary actions is either increasing or it's going to increase. So again, make of that what you will. I find that interesting. Now, I'm not going to flip-flop. I don't do that. I've said tampering with contracted players is bad for business. Chris Badawi's a trained lawyer, supposedly. He should know better. But as far as he's concerned, he actually didn't cross a threshold. And we'll get to that in a second. Ultimately, that point's academic. But let's be clear. When I reported on this incident, I'm the guy that reported the tampering and put it in the public domain. Most people in the community concluded Riot would be powerless to do anything because Misfits, as they were then known, were outside of LCS. And this much is true. They couldn't do anything when they're outside of Challenger. They're not doing anything while they're in Challenger, but they've extended this penalty. They've made the penalty so long just to ensure, right, that, if they do get to LCS, and let's be real, they should be promoted before the end of 2016, he feels the sting. There's also a lot around this that suggests there's a sense of appeasement going on. We know that Riot obviously like to engage with the people that engage with them, and this includes the team owners of the big organizations. They've complained about Chris Badawi, and Steve Arhansett has a lot of pull. Team Liquid are a very successful big organization. You've got to respect them. But of course, Steve Arhansett was the guy behind Curse. He's no strangers to Riot. And I think there's a little bit of appeasement going on here as well. Let's not rock the boat, right? So I spoke with Badawi back at the time I reported this tampering, and I was blunt with him. I found the things he was saying to be ridiculously naive. I said I found it hard to believe that he was a law student. I'm a blunt guy, right? Like I basically said, this is what I think about what you're saying. I told him I thought he was out of depth in this world of esports, and I still believe, to a certain degree, that that's true. That this business is you're swimming with sharks every day, and for the most part, the sharks are either retarded or psychotic. So it's an erratic and merciless business. But I think we can agree that, yeah, he probably shouldn't be having conversations with players about their employment. But equally, it's got to be said, in esports in general, and in particular in League of Legends, these conversations happen every weekend, at every event, over beers, and over Skype through the week. Now, during the conversation I had with Badawi while I was reporting this, he told me what had happened, and I see no reason to disbelieve him. My conclusion was that he was amateurish and unprofessional, but it wasn't the same degree of tampering that went on when CLG tried to take a Team Dignitas players, for example. So there's a lot of spin in this ruling. So the Keith incident could be construed as tampering because he did ask the player directly, do you want to come, would you be willing to play for us? However, after that happened, Team Liquid engaged Badawi directly in talks. They even got so far as agreeing a buyout fee for the player, but the deal got put on ice when the whole Piglet situation arose and Liquid wanted to keep Keith to cover their bases. Now, during this time, Badawi said to Keith, hey, let's just pretend like this conversation never happened, meaning it in the sense like, look, let's start over. I didn't know the correct way to go about this. I'm new. I've now talked directly to your owner. We're going through the proper channels. There you go. So it wasn't an attempt at a convoluted cover-up. This is actually a misrepresentation of what happened. Now, the Quaz incident was one conversation, and Badawi basically said to the player that if he was unhappy with the organisation, and I don't know why he would have concluded that. I'm not saying Quaz is saying he's unhappy about it. I've not spoke to the player about it, so I'm not representing that as fact. But the conversation that took place was that, according to Badawi, that if he wasn't happy with the organisation, he shouldn't feel obliged to renew his contract. And he said, if for any reason you decided not to renew your contract and you do leave, drop me a message because I'll always make room for you. Now, that to me, it's a stretch to call that tampering, really. It's unprofessional, maybe, when you think about the positions of everyone involved, but I'm pretty sure Badawi did it with the intent that, look, I'm going to offer some counsel to someone I know, and I'm not trying to manufacture a transfer here. So factor all of that in, right, when you're assessing the severity of the punishment and what it means. Because Chris is like an increasing number of people in League of Legends, what have actually been termed by some rioters undesirables. You know, he's made life hard for himself. He's irritated the owners of the big brands that they're the only people that have anything that even comes close to leverage over Riot. He's angered Riot themselves. He's talked in hippy-dippy terms about wanting to change the system, even though he's only been part of it for a short period of time. And I've been banging my head against that wall for 10 years. Change ain't quick if it comes at all. You know, he's expressed contempt for the Riot way, and now he's banned, and he's going to need to grovel in however long it is, a year, 18 months, whatever it works out as, if he ever wants to be officially recognised by the league. And what does that do in the meantime? Is he going to come out and criticise Riot? Is he going to come out and defend his position? You can kiss your appeal goodbye then, can't you? I mean, you guys can see what's happening here. So, a final thought. A look into Richard's crystal ball. And when it comes to Riot games, it's almost never wrong. Think about this for a moment. So pretty much every Riot investigation, if they have evidence at all, which of course they don't need, it's their show, they can run it however they want. All this talk of integrity, it's all an illusion, it's all bullshit. Alright? This isn't a sport, it's a marketing exercise. People need to wake up to that. But anyway, that's a topic for another video. So just think about it. The evidence that they have, if they have any, is always Skype logs or, you know, Twitter messages or Facebook messages that they've just strong-armed from players and staff to hand over. Now, in their official ruling here, it says, due to the repeated pattern of soliciting players under contract, we are declining to certify Chris Badawi as eligible to be an LCS owner, and we're issuing a 1-year ban on him holding any officially recognised LCS team position, so owner, coach, manager. Now, how far does that actually extend? Because we know he's still going to be in the organisation. It's as simple as that. He'll probably be under a term like vice president or whatever. But can he talk to the players? If so, what's he cleared to talk to them about? Imagine a scenario where if he says something in a conversation to a player like, oh, you shouldn't have played that game that we lost in this manner. My advice would have been to do it this way. Well, is he coaching them now? Because if he's coaching them and he's not allowed to coach them, are Riot going to, you know, take that out of context like they do with so much else and punish the team for not observing the ban? These things need to be absolutely clear here, because it's one thing to say, hey, he can't hold any officially recognised LCS team positions, as in Riot are not going to recognise him, Riot are not going to pay him a salary, right? So even if he demoted himself to coach or whatever, we're not going to play that game. But, you know, and he can't take part in either broadcast or anything like that, you know, these nonsensical situations. But ultimately, what if, I don't know, he is critical? What if he does fight Riot? And then he is going to have conversations with the players. He is going to be involved. How long before there's an investigation and they use some flimsy conversation that gets leaked as proof that they're not observing the ban? And if so, what does that mean? You know, you need to think about that. And trust me as well, if you think Riot wouldn't go that far, you haven't been paying attention to anything I've said. Anyway, just some quick thoughts there that I wanted to put on the public domain. Thanks a lot for listening. I'll see you on the next video.